You become what you think about most of the time. Doubt is not your enemy until you believe it. It whispers in your ear when no one's watching. It tells you you're not ready, not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough. And the worst part? You listen. Doubt only has power when you believe it. That's the truth most people overlook. Doubt by itself is just a thought, a fleeting whisper in the mind, a suggestion, a hesitation. It's not solid. It has no real form, no real weight. It can't hold you back on its own. But when you give it your attention, when you pause and entertain it, when you take it seriously and start to believe in it, that's when it grows. That's when it takes root. That's when it begins to control you. You weren't born doubting yourself. You learned it. Somewhere along the way, maybe from something a teacher said, maybe from how your parents treated your dreams, maybe from watching others fail you, picked up the idea that you're not enough. And over time, that idea turned into a habit of self-sabotage. Every time you wanted to try something bold, that doubt showed up. Every time you considered taking a risk, pushing a little harder, stepping outside your comfort zone, it whispered, "You can't do this. Who do you think you are?" And most people don't challenge that voice. They don't question it. They treat it like fact. They don't realize that this voice isn't some external force that knows their future. It's a reflection of past fears, mistakes, and conditioning. The voice of doubt often sounds like your own voice, but it isn't your truth. It's your past trying to protect you from pain by keeping you small. But staying small doesn't protect you, it only guarantees regret. The reason doubt becomes so powerful is because you feed it. You give it space. You run the same thought loops over and over until they feel real. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I look stupid? You go down that mental spiral and treat it like planning, like preparation, like being realistic. But it's not realism, it's paralysis. And doubt loves when you confuse fear with logic, because then it doesn't even have to work hard to stop you. Think about how many opportunities you've let pass because of doubt. Think about the things you wanted to say, the chances you wanted to take, the steps you wanted to make but didn't. Not because you weren't capable, but because doubt got to you first. That voice said, "Not now, not yet, you're not ready," and you listened. And maybe you convinced yourself you were being patient or smart, but deep down you knew it was fear. You knew you were holding yourself back. That's the power of belief. When you believe in doubt, it becomes your truth. And once it becomes your truth, you start acting like it. You shrink yourself. You play small. You avoid anything that might challenge that belief. You start filtering your decisions through fear, not faith. And before long, you're building a life not based on possibility, but on protection. You're choosing safety over growth, survival over success. But here's what most people don't realize. The mind is always listening. Every time you give in to doubt, your brain records it. Every time you pull back instead of stepping forward, you train your mind to avoid risk. You condition yourself to fear failure more than you desire success. And then, even when the doubt is no longer logical, even when you've grown and learned and gotten stronger, the habit remains. Because belief gets stronger the more you act in alignment with it. So, if you believe in your doubt, you'll act in doubt. And those actions will reinforce the doubt. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you listen, the more you shrink. The more you shrink, the less you achieve. The less you achieve, the more evidence your doubt has to throw back at you. See, it says, "I told you so." But all of it, the cycle, the fear, the paralysis, it only works if you agree with it. If you stop believing in it, if you start seeing it for what it really is, just a thought, just noise, just programming, you break the cycle. Doubt doesn't need to be defeated, it needs to be denied access asterisk. You don't argue with it, you don't try to reason with it, and you don't wait for it to go away. You simply stop giving it attention. You build a new belief instead. You train your mind to focus on progress, not perfection, on growth, not gaps, on action, not excuses. The trick is awareness. Most people never become aware of how much power they've handed over to doubt. It becomes part of their identity. They think, "I'm just not confident," or "I'm just anxious," or "I've always been like this." But those are just stories. Doubt wrote them, but you've been repeating them. And the more you repeat them, the more real they feel. Your self-talk shapes your reality. Every word you say to yourself carries weight. It may not seem like it in the moment, but the thoughts you repeat silently become the foundation of how you see yourself, how you approach challenges, and how you move through life. Most people don't realize that the conversation they have with themselves is more influential than any external voice. It determines the risks they take, the limits they set, and the results they experience. You could have all the talent in the world, all the intelligence, all the potential, but if your inner voice is constantly tearing you down, second-guessing you, or convincing you that you're not enough, then none of that potential ever fully sees the light of day. It doesn't matter what the outside world says if your inside world is constantly in conflict with your own greatness. The mind will always try to prove itself right, so if you say, "I'm not good at this," your brain will find evidence. If you say, "I always mess up," your actions will begin to match that expectation. That's the power of belief. And belief is created through repetition. We are creatures of habit, not just in what we do, but in what we think. If you've been telling yourself for years that you're lazy, or unlucky, or not capable of achieving big things, that self-image has become deeply embedded. You don't question it because it feels familiar. But just because something feels familiar doesn't make it true. It just means it's been repeated enough to feel automatic. Think about how you react under pressure. That voice that shows up in the tough moments, the one that tells you you're not ready, or that you'll fail, isn't based on facts. It's based on patterns. It's a loop that's been running in the background for years. And if you never change the script, it keeps playing the same story. The story of limitation, the story of fear, the story of hesitation. That's why your self-talk matters so much. It's not just a passive inner dialogue. It's a directive. It tells your brain what to focus on, what to believe, and how to act. Start paying attention to the words you use when you talk to yourself. Do you speak with encouragement or criticism? Do you remind yourself of your strength or your shortcomings? Would you speak to someone you love the same way you speak to yourself? For most people, the answer is no. They'd never say to their best friend the things they casually say to themselves every single day. You'll never be good enough. You always screw this up. You're wasting your time. But when that kind of language becomes the norm, it shapes a worldview that's rooted in self-doubt and insecurity. There's a reason top performers, athletes, leaders, creators train their mindset just as much as they train their skills. They understand that how they talk to themselves in the quiet moments will echo in the big one. When the pressure is on and doubt starts to creep in, they don't rely on motivation, they rely on programming. They've built a voice inside that says, "I've got this," even when things get tough. That kind of self-talk doesn't happen by accident. It's built on purpose, one repetition at a time. Every time you say, "I am," you're casting a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. I am strong. I am focused. I am capable. These aren't just affirmations. They're identity statements. And identity drives behavior. If you believe you're someone who follows through, you'll act accordingly. If you believe you're someone who always quits, you'll prove yourself right. So the question becomes, what identity are you reinforcing with your words? Changing your self-talk starts with awareness, but it doesn't end there. You have to consciously replace old language with new patterns. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't," challenge it. Replace it with, "I'm learning." Instead of, "This is too hard," say, "This is a chance to grow." Instead of, "I'm not good at this," say, "I'm getting better every day." These changes might feel small at first, maybe even forced, but over time they shift how you see yourself. And when how you see yourself changes, how you show up in the world changes too. You are not stuck with the thoughts you've inherited. You are not a prisoner of past programming. The mind is adaptable. It can be trained, reconditioned, rewired. It starts with being intentional about the words you allow in, not just from others, but from yourself. Because at the end of the day, no voice has more power over your life than the one in your own head. Repetition builds belief. This is one of the most underestimated truths about the human mind. People often think confidence is something you either have or don't have, that belief in yourself comes naturally to some and not to others. But belief is not born, it's built. It's constructed over time, brick by brick, through repeated thoughts, repeated actions, and repeated affirmations. The mind doesn't automatically know what's true or false. It learns by exposure. What it hears over and over, it eventually accepts as real. And this is where repetition becomes a powerful force. Every time you say something, think something, or act in a certain way, you're reinforcing a message to your brain. You're sending a signal: this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I believe. If that message is negative, I'm not good enough, I always fail, I can't change, then that belief becomes a lens you see the world through. You start noticing every piece of evidence that supports it, and you overlook the moments that contradict it. Your brain becomes biased toward reinforcing what's already familiar. That's how belief becomes a cage. But the same mechanism works in your favor when you flip the message. If you start feeding your mind positive, empowering, growth-oriented thoughts, and you do it consistently, even when you don't fully believe them, yet you start reshaping that inner belief system. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen after saying something once. That's the key. You have to say it again and again until your brain starts to accept it as a new truth. Repetition overrides doubt, not by arguing with it, not by fighting it, but by drowning it out. It's like going to the gym. You don't lift a weight once and expect to be strong. You don't run a mile once and expect to be in shape. You have to show up daily, even when you're tired, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you feel like nothing is changing. Over time, the compound effect kicks in. Tiny, consistent actions lead to visible transformation. The same is true for belief. You don't build it through one big motivational moment. You build it through small, repeated decisions to speak to yourself differently. Many people quit too soon. They try to believe in themselves for a day or two, but the old voices creep back in, and they assume that means it isn't working. But that's not failure, it's just resistance. It's the old belief system fighting to stay alive. Your brain prefers the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. That's why you have to stay committed to the new story you're writing, even when it feels unnatural, especially when it feels unnatural, because that's how you know you're doing something new. Every strong, confident person you see has trained their mind to believe something that wasn't always obvious. Maybe they started with doubt, fear, or low self-worth. But they didn't let those thoughts define them forever. They repeated something new: I can do this, I am valuable, I am enough, until it became their foundation. And from that foundation, they built action, because belief always drives behavior. When you believe in yourself, even just a little, you start doing things differently. You take chances, you speak up, you push harder, you stay in the game longer, and those actions in turn reinforce the belief. It becomes a cycle, a powerful upward spiral. Repetition leads to belief, belief leads to action, action leads to results, and results strengthen belief. But it starts with repetition. It starts with what you say to yourself in the mirror, in your head, in the quiet moments when no one else is listening. Those are the moments that matter most, because those are the moments that build the muscle of belief. It's easy to fall back into old patterns, especially when life throws challenges at you, but the mind is trainable. You can program it to default to strength instead of weakness, to faith instead of fear. It just takes conscious, consistent effort. You write the script, and you repeat it until it becomes second nature. And every time you do, you're not just thinking positively, you're rewiring your identity. You're shaping who you are, one thought at a time. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing a new narrative and reinforcing it with discipline. When the old voice says, you can't, you replace it with, I can. When it says you're not ready, you repeat, I'm becoming stronger every day. And you don't just say it once. You say it as often as needed until the new belief becomes louder than the old one. You don't need proof to believe in yourself. That's where most people get stuck. They wait for evidence. They wait for someone else to validate them, to approve of them, to give them a reason to believe they're worthy, capable, or ready. But belief doesn't start with evidence. It starts with a decision. A conscious choice to trust yourself even when there's no track record, no guarantee, no past win to look back on. Waiting for proof is the fastest way to stay stuck, because if you demand evidence before you believe, you'll never act. And without action, there's no result. Without result, there's no evidence. It's a trap that loops endlessly until someone is brave enough to break it. The people who achieve great things don't do it because they already proved themselves. They do it because they decided to believe they could long before there was any logical reason to do so. They acted on faith, not proof. They bet on their potential, not their past. They saw something inside themselves even if no one else did. And they repeated that vision to themselves until it became their reality. They didn't wait to feel confident. They built confidence by moving forward without it. This is where most people misinterpret the idea of belief. They think belief has to feel good. They assume it has to be rooted in certainty. But real belief often feels shaky at first. It feels uncomfortable. It feels forced because it goes against your old wiring, your old self-image, your old doubts. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That means it's new. And anything new will feel unfamiliar at first. That's why so many give up on belief too soon. They confuse discomfort with dishonesty. They think, if I don't fully believe it yet, I must be lying to myself. But belief is not a feeling, it's a choice. You don't need to feel confident to start. You just need to stop giving your doubt all the power. The idea that you need proof to believe in yourself is based on the false assumption that belief must follow achievement. That you have to win first, succeed first, be applauded first, and then you earn the right to believe. But that's backwards. Belief is what fuels the action that leads to achievement. Belief comes before the result. If you wait for results to start believing, you'll never get the results in the first place. It's like planting a seed and refusing to water it until it grows. You can't wait for the outcome before you put in the effort. You have to nourish belief first, even when it feels like nothing is happening. The most successful people in any field weren't the ones with the most credentials or the most experience at the beginning. They were the ones with the most willingness to act in the absence of certainty. They were the ones who said, I might not know how yet, but I'll figure it out. That mindset, that belief without proof is what set them apart. Because when you believe in yourself without needing a guarantee, you open the door to growth, learning, and transformation. You take steps others are too afraid to take. You try things others won't try. And even if you fall short, you learn something, you grow, and that growth becomes the foundation of real confidence. So many people hold themselves back waiting for a sign, waiting for someone else to recognize them, to give them permission to say, now you're good enough. But the truth is, no one is coming to do that for you. No one is going to hand you the perfect moment. No one is going to say, it's time now. You have to choose to believe before the world reflects it back. You have to step forward before you feel ready. Readiness is a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. When you start moving without proof, something shifts. You stop living by limitation and start living by possibility. You begin to trust your ability to adapt, to grow, to figure things out along the way. And as you do that, you start creating your own evidence. You start building momentum. The belief that once felt forced becomes natural. The actions that once felt risky become routine. And the proof you were once waiting for is now unfolding because you had the courage to move without it. Believing in yourself without proof is one of the most powerful mental skills you can develop. It's not about arrogance, it's about ownership. It's about saying, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to try. It's about choosing possibility over paralysis. It's about honoring your potential, even if no one else sees it yet. Because belief doesn't come from the outside in, it grows from the inside out. Your inner voice must be louder than outside noise. Every day you are surrounded by opinions, judgments, distractions, and doubt from the world around you. People will project their fears onto you. They'll tell you what's realistic, what's safe, what makes sense based on their limitations, not yours. The outside world is filled with noise, social media, criticism, expectations, comparisons, all of it, constantly pushing you to conform, to doubt yourself, to pull back from who you really are. And if your inner voice isn't strong, clear, and grounded, you'll start to absorb those external voices as your own. You'll confuse other people's uncertainty with your truth. The mind is always listening, and it doesn't just listen to what you say, it listens to what others say too. It takes in messages all day long. If you're not consciously shaping your own thoughts, you will unconsciously start living by someone else's script. You'll start chasing goals that don't fulfill you, trying to prove yourself to people who don't even matter, and doubting your path just because someone else doesn't understand it. That's the cost of letting the outside noise drown out your inner guidance. You lose touch with your own intuition. You forget why you started. You forget what matters to you. That's why mastering your inner voice is not a luxury. It's a necessity. You have to build a voice inside your head that is louder, stronger, and more consistent than anything you hear on the outside. A voice that reminds you who you are, even when others don't see it. A voice that keeps you focused, grounded, and clear when the world tries to scatter your energy. That voice is your anchor. It's your compass. Without it, you drift. The challenge is that the outside noise is constant. It doesn't stop. And a lot of it comes from people you care about, friends, family, mentors, people who may love you but don't understand your vision. People who mean well but speak from fear. If you don't have a strong internal narrative, you'll end up living their version of your life. You'll mistake their comfort zone for your calling. You'll start shrinking to fit into the image others have of you, rather than expanding to meet the person you're meant to become. Your inner voice isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. You train it the same way you train a muscle. Every time you speak truth to yourself in the face of doubt, you strengthen it. Every time you affirm your value, even when no one else sees it, you reinforce it. Every time you stay committed to your vision, even when it's unpopular or misunderstood, you make that voice louder. And eventually that voice becomes so strong that no amount of noise can shake you. You may hear it, but you're not moved by it. You stay centered in who you are. One of the most powerful things you can do is create space to hear yourself think. In a world that's always shouting for your attention, silence is a weapon. Reflection is power. When you get quiet, when you unplug from the noise and listen inward, you can hear what really matters. You can sort through the clutter and reconnect with your direction. That's when your inner voice becomes clear. Not because the world got quieter, but because you got louder inside. There will always be people who doubt you. There will always be critics, distractions, and negativity. That's part of the journey. The question is not whether the noise exists. The question is whether it controls you. And the answer depends entirely on the strength of your inner voice. Do you know who you are when no one's clapping? Do you trust your path when no one's validating it? Can you stay focused when others are trying to pull you off course? That's what separates the few who rise from the many who settle. It's not talent or luck, it's the ability to stay rooted in your truth, no matter what the world says. It's the decision to listen to your inner voice, especially when it would be easier to follow the crowd. The strongest people in the world aren't the ones with the loudest platforms, they're the ones with the clearest inner direction. You build that inner voice by speaking life into yourself, not once but daily. You repeat the truth until it becomes louder than the lie. You remind yourself of your strength, your worth, your vision. You speak to yourself with encouragement, with authority, with purpose. Because at the end of the day, no matter what the world says, it's the voice you believe that shapes your future.